Imagine someone tells you something that doesn't quite add up. Maybe the timeline is off. Maybe a detail contradicts something they said last week. In that moment, you feel it in your body before your mind even catches up. A small tightening, a flicker of doubt, and almost every instinct in you says the same thing. Call it out. Say, wait, that's not what you told me before. Make them explain themselves right there, on the spot. That instinct feels like justice. It feels like protecting yourself, like refusing to be fooled. But here's what most people never realize. The moment you call someone out on a lie directly, in real time, you usually lose more than you gain. You alert them. You give away exactly how much you know and exactly how you found out. And you push them into defense mode, which is the one mental state where people almost never tell you the truth. Think about what happens physiologically when someone gets caught. Their brain doesn't calmly assess the situation and decide honesty is the best path forward. It shifts into threat response. Cognitive load spikes. And under high cognitive load, people don't become more truthful, they become more strategic. They start managing your reaction instead of answering your question. This is why direct confrontation so often produces more elaborate lies, not less. You haven't created honesty. You've created a performance, and now they know exactly which parts of the story you're watching closely. It gets even more interesting when you understand confirmation bias in this context. Once someone knows you suspect them, every future interaction becomes filtered through that awareness. They start pre-planning their answers. They rehearse consistency instead of speaking from truth. Ironically, calling someone out early often makes them a better liar going forward, not a worse one, because you've just given them a free lesson in what you're paying attention to. This is where almost everyone makes the same mistake. They treat confrontation as the moment of power. In reality, information is the actual power, and confrontation spends it instantly, usually for very little in return. The person who says nothing, who stays calm, who keeps gathering rather than reacting, is almost always in the stronger position. This isn't about being passive. It's about timing, patience, and emotional regulation working together instead of against each other. So what should you actually do instead? Not confrontation, and not silence forever either. Something more deliberate, built on 3 principles. The first is curiosity instead of accusation. Rather than stating what you believe is a lie, ask a question that requires them to fill in more detail. Something like, wait, walk me through that again. What happened right before that part? A direct accusation gives someone a binary choice, deny or admit. An open question forces them to generate more information, and more information means more opportunities for inconsistency to surface naturally. This works because most lies aren't fully rehearsed stories. They're patched together under pressure, and patches don't hold up well under multiple retellings. You're not trapping them. You're simply giving the inconsistency room to reveal itself. The second principle is emotional stillness. This is harder than it sounds, because the natural reaction to being lied to is a mix of anger and hurt, and both of those emotions are visible on your face and in your tone, whether you intend them to be or not. If someone sees that reaction, they immediately know they've been caught, and the strategic response kicks in before you've learned anything useful. Staying emotionally still doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're choosing to gather truth before you spend energy on a reaction. There's a psychological concept called emotional contagion, where one person's visible emotional state spreads to influence the behavior of people around them. If you stay calm, it becomes harder for the other person to justify escalating the situation, because you haven't given them anything to escalate against. The third principle is delayed response. Once you actually have clarity, and only once you have it, you decide how and when to address it, on your terms, not in a reactive burst, in the moment you first noticed something was off. This matters because timing itself communicates power. Reacting instantly signals that the other person's actions control your behavior in real time. Responding later, calmly, and with full context, signals the opposite. It tells them, and just as importantly, it tells you that your response is a choice, not a reflex. Now here's the part nobody expects. This approach isn't really about catching someone in a lie for the satisfaction of being right. It's about protecting your own decision-making. Every time you react impulsively to deception, you're making choices from a place of hurt and adrenaline, which is rarely where good judgment lives. When you slow the process down, you give yourself the chance to actually think clearly about what the lie means, whether it's a small self-corrective moment or a pattern that says something deeper about the relationship. There's also something quieter happening underneath all of this. People who lie are often testing, even unconsciously, how much they can get away with. If your response is always immediate and emotional, you teach them exactly how to manage you next time. If your response is calm, delayed, and rooted in full understanding, you become much harder to predict and much harder to manipulate, because you're no longer operating on the timeline they expected. This doesn't mean you excuse dishonesty, It means you refuse to let someone else's deception dictate the pace and tone of your own reaction. You gather, you stay composed, and when the moment is right, you address it from a position of clarity rather than impulse. True power is rarely about controlling other people. It's about controlling yourself. If this changed how you think about honesty, timing, and self-control, subscribe. There's more to uncover about the hidden psychology behind how people deceive, defend, and reveal themselves, often without realizing it.